Hello, everyone, and welcome to Retention Chronicles. Today, we are joined by Michelle at Olipop. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michelle. We are so excited to have you. We're going to have you say hi, give a little bit of your background, introduce yourself and Olipop.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here as well. So I am Michelle Paulhus. I work for Olipop. I am part of the omni-channel team here. I've worked for Olipop. I started June of 2021, so a little bit over a year. I've started on the team as the email and lifecycle marketing manager, and just kind of transitioned to focus a little bit more on retention as my role has evolved. Prior to Olipop, I worked for another D2C subscription only business. So I had a lot of experience and focus on retention and subscription, which kind of just led naturally into where I'm at Olipop today.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Can you walk us through did you have you always been focused on retention, like making that transition more into that field has always been an area of interest for you?
My career has kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster evolution. I actually started my career as a graphic designer. And so I worked as a graphic designer for about 10 years or so, and somehow just kind of ended up taking on more marketing responsibilities as my role at my last job evolved, just out of natural interest in learning, and just kind of fell into it and found a love for it, and just kind of naturally evolved a combination of just passion for the industry and creative background, kind of all evolved to where I'm at today. So yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like when I think about so far, when I think about Olipop, I think of design, honestly, because of the cans and the website as well too. So before we get into that, can you, well, maybe I completely missed it, but could you give a little bit more information about Ollipop the company?
Sure. So Ollipop is a kind of healthy soda business. Actually, we kind of phrase ourselves as a new kind of soda. We're kind of in a transition now of how we're labeling our product. We have been in retail for a while, and D2C business came out of mostly the pandemic. And so really our retail business has been a lot of the focus. And so D2C has played a different role, and we can talk a little bit more about how that has evolved through the process for our brand. And so really just focused on that really fun, nostalgic kind of soda feel. Obviously a health product, but focused, on the fun side of, a healthy product is really a focus for us.
Yeah. So I know Mariah, we talked about this. So we knew that we were going to interview you. So we went out and we bought Ollipops. I went to the local Whole Foods store to find my Ollipop. Mariah, you ordered it online, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
So we wanted to see like what was the experience like online. Like you shared with me all those emails and stuff. So I'm curious, what did you get again, Mariah? What flavors?
I got the sampler pack. So it's like the 12.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. So the one I'm drinking right now is the ginger one, the lemon ginger, I believe.
Yeah, ginger lemon.
Yes, I knew I was gonna mess it up because the can was turned around, but see right here, ginger lemon. Yep. And then it had vintage cola, cherry, is it cherry vanilla?
Yep.
As well. Yeah, cherry vanilla, strawberry as well. I should have brought out the whole pack. I could have held it up.
I thought you were going to drink all of them throughout this.
Oh, that would be a lot. 12 cans in an hour.
Yeah, it's good for you.
Yeah, you're right. Of the sodas to drink, it would be one of the best because it's one of those healthier versions. But where I'm at right now, it is 10 a.m. So 12 sodas at 10 a.m. in an hour.
Okay,
so it's a record.
It's 9 a.m.
I'll take
here.
The challenge.
It's 9 a.m. here. So I drank my coffee like an hour ago, or no, like 30 minutes ago. So then I'll stick to Ollipop after this. So quick story. So I have vintage cola.
Huh?
Oh, that's the opposite. And then a classic root beer. So last night I wanted to save both for today. Last night I was like, I was craving something that wasn't water. So I went into the fridge. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take an Ollipop now because at least I'll have one in the morning. My wife was next to me, and then she doesn't know anything about Ollipop. So I was like, well, this is like the interview that we're going on. She's like, can I try some too? I was like, okay, like we'll split it. And I'm curious if this is the second time I've tried Olipop. First time for her. In the first sip, she was like, ugh, like this is not what I expected. And by the end of the vintage, we tried the vintage cola. By the end of it, she wants to go and get a 6-pack. She really liked it. I'm curious, is that common, Michelle? Like, have you heard that from customers before? Like, it takes a little bit to get there, or at least like 1 or 2 cans?
Yeah, definitely. I think it also comes down to the flavor variety. I mean, we hear a lot of people who really like one flavor, but another one just really wasn't their jam. So I think in terms of experimenting with our flavors and trying different things is really the way to go. People seem to be like really hardcore for certain flavors over the others. And I think it just takes time maybe to find what's right for you. And I also think it depends on maybe what your soda drinking habits are from the past. If you're like used to, a high sugar Coke kind of drink, it might come to you as a little bit of a different taste that might just take a little bit of time to get used to. But for people who, like myself, who really haven't had soda much in years, being able to drink something that tastes a lot like, original soda is like a major treat. So it just really depends, I think, on your background and what you're used to. But I do think we have a flavor kind of for everyone.
Do you, I don't want to go all the way here yet, but I just want to ask this question. Like,
Sure.
In the D2C space, you have that data point of obviously the types of drinks that someone is purchasing. So you kind of already have this segmentation of what people are buying, what they like.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And it really comes from, most of our purchases are actually the sampler pack or the bestsellers pack that Mariah mentioned. A lot of people buy that first, and then we kind of funnel them through trying different flavors from there. We do see, especially on subscription, people kind of find their flavor and they stick with it. But this year we've had so many new flavors come out. It seems like we're coming out with a new one, feels like almost every month. So there's a lot more to try and experiment with. So it's a journey to kind of try all the different flavors. And people are experimenting a lot with different new things as well.
Okay. Mariah, what are you having right now then?
Yeah, so the one I'm having right now is the ginger lemon. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't drink a ton of soda. So Michelle, I think you're right in that like your perception or your expectation is probably different, right? Because Olipop isn't your traditional soda. And so for me, I really didn't have I was like, oh, I think I'd maybe drink anything like carbonated, like a Sprite, like not a ton of, I don't really like root beer or Coke or anything. So for me, I like the ginger lemon route because if I'm having tea, like usually it's ginger and lemon, so it matched well. But I like it. I think that because I didn't really know what to expect, I was like, cracking it open. I did kind of like the first sip, I was like, oh, it is a little bit different from what I planned. Like it kind of tastes like almost like kombucha a little bit. Like I could taste that it was definitely less sugar and better for me, if that sounds, if that makes sense to anyone. Like I could taste like that it was healthier.
Yeah, I think that especially the ginger lemon flavor is I think popular, especially with people who are coming from more like the kombucha kind of healthier drink spectrum, or maybe more like sparkling water type of thing. But then more of our classic soda flavors are maybe more attractive to people who are really transitioning from, the traditional soda. So, and another interesting thing just about our flavors is we hear a lot about different like food pairings with different flavors, which for me is kind of like how I drink Ollipop as well. Like I really like a vintage cola with a burger, but like, in the middle of the day for a treat, that banana cream flavor that came out over the summer, that's something that feels very indulgent, like a treat that I wouldn't necessarily pair with food, but is a good kind of, midday pick me up as well.
Okay. Do you talk about this on your website or no? Like what pairings, or is that just kind of organic?
We do a lot of on social with that. We have some blog posts about food pairings. We've done, some email content about it. We did, I think, an email campaign last year. We took a lot of like UGC content of what people are posting on social. Like I like, root beer with pizza, and kind of giving people different inspirations of what to try. And it's just interesting to hear what people like, because I think everybody's kind of different too.
Oh yeah. Well, I bring that up because so again, we talked to Tenzo Tea before, and their big thing that they're really pushing is like the recipes, and so they're trying to just push the ideas, like especially on the retention side of, hey, here are a few recipes that are brand new from the user generated content that is being created, and then putting it on their website, and obviously like trying to drive more traffic doing that.
Yeah, content for us like that has worked really well.
Yeah.
We have some really great kind of Instagram user generated content of people pouring a certain flavor over ice cream, and maybe mixing alcohol in it, making a little cocktail or a mocktail. So a lot of different things you can do with Ollipop, just the same as you could mix in with traditional soda, which is fun.
Yeah,
that's really fun. I know you just said, Michelle, while we were hopping on this call, that you just launched new flavors. Was it yesterday you said?
Yeah, yesterday was the early access launch of our cherry cola flavor, which I'm on this morning. This was an exciting launch. The flavor is sold on drinkollipop.com, but it's also exclusive at Target, which with the red color, that
matches.
Really exciting. First time we've done something quite like that, especially with a big national retailer like Target. So exciting launch. I think they have the flavor exclusive for the year, and it can also be purchased on our website.
Yeah.
So you don't have to answer this if it's like private information or private data, but like you said during the pandemic, that's when you went to D2C, you're like 100%. Is that what it was? Retail side before the pandemic, or did you have a website?
I wasn't part of the team at the time, but from what I understand, we were primarily retail, and the launch of our D2C website, I think, was in February of 2020. So like right as the pandemic was starting. So the timing was great. And it just allowed people a different way to purchase at that time, when there was, a lot of unknowns about, am I going to be able to get enough groceries? So that really created an initial audience for drinkollipop.com. But ever since then, our retail expansion has just skyrocketed. I think I saw a number yesterday that we're approaching 20,000 doors here very soon. So I think when I started, maybe we were at 5,000, 6,000. I don't remember the exact number, but our retail expansion has grown significantly, which has a lot of impact on our D2C business as well, especially just in the ratio of our business growth. It's definitely growing more in retail than D2C right now, but there's a definite relationship there between in-store purchasing and online. And we can talk a little bit more about that. I got some interesting learnings we've had from.
Let's go for that. Like because I was going to ask you, like, let's go deeper. And what is that relationship? Like, do you see that it's almost a first touch at retail? Like, hey, here's how you can get your sample.
Yeah, that's really what we're seeing right now. I looked a couple weeks ago and really did a deep dive in our post-purchase survey, where we asked, how did you hear about us first? And beginning of the year, retail was towards the bottom of that list of how people had heard about us. They've heard about us more through, paid ads, social, digital stuff. Now in August, it was the number one place people had heard about us. And so that shift, throughout just, the course of this year alone has really changed how people are interacting with Ollipop, initially, which I think really, from a D2C perspective might seem like maybe it's a bad thing. We're going to lose some of our D2C business to retail. But I think with the way Ollipop approaches kind of our omni-channel approach to things, I think that's actually a really good thing for our D2C business, because it allows people to have easy access to try a can, find their flavor that they like with so many that we have available, and then filter in through buying on D2C. So I think I think of retail as kind of like a billboard for our D2C business, and really taking that approach to things. And another interesting thing we've learned this year is we've surveyed people who are buying repeatedly on drinkollipop.com. And we asked the question, do you also buy in retail? Like, are you actively buying through us and in retail? And like 58% of people say they're buying in retail and online from us. So we know people are shopping in a various ways, and we kind of, as a brand and a business, are kind of agnostic to where people are purchasing, which is a totally different perspective for me, coming from a strict D2C business, and being an open mind to, our goal is really just to reach as many people as possible and be where people are shopping, however they want to shop, versus trying to force people kind of down certain funnels.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is like, do you have any campaigns that are, hey, let's focus on getting these retail customers that are already buying us through retail, like getting them to the D2C side? Or it sounds like it's just been organic and like let them choose the path.
Yeah, it really has been mostly organic in terms of people coming from retail to our D2C. We're not necessarily, doing anything with our packaging to, at this point, we probably won't, kind of to drive to D2C from a retail purchase. We're really kind of relying on that organic trial at retail and then come to our D2C website. And it seems to be working, naturally without ad spend, which is great.
Okay, so when you are buying retail, and this is more a question just because I don't know how it works in retail. Do you get any customer information at all from the Targets of the world?
I mean, in terms of like individual customer data, no. We can't necessarily tie, a person purchased in Target and then they came to our website and purchased. We don't have that level of data. We just have kind of the larger scale retail data that's available just to see shopper trends as a whole.
Okay.
But we can't necessarily tie those two things together, which is an interesting challenge in terms of gauging how that is working.
Well, it's like, I feel like there's got to be ways around this, Mariah, because maybe I'm just going crazy, but like sometimes when we're shopping retail, so we have connected TV, like streaming TV, Hulu Live TV, and like we'll get an ad from a few of the brands that we've purchased from in the last like couple days, and so it's either just like the targeting is great, they already know that we're planning to buy, or they actually know that we bought and
they do know that you've bought. There definitely is technology that can track purchases through credit cards and all of that. I mean, kind of nothing is secret anymore in terms of what we're all doing online and even in store. So all that data is there, but we can't necessarily directly connect those data points.
I see.
I would also think like URL tracking too, because like on social platforms, if you go to like someone's website and then it pops up later on your social feed or vice versa. It's like you check out someone's Instagram and then you're on the Google or online, wherever, and then their little ad pops up. Like, I definitely think there are workarounds, but it's interesting hearing you talk about the experience with retail and D2C, Michelle, because we had we had Proper Good on as a guest in season 1, and they started out in retail, and similar to Ollipop, then joined the D2C space, and they have since converted, I believe, 100% to D2C just because of that reason, that they couldn't get the individualized data of who was purchasing with them, and they wanted that experience to be super personalized. And so because of that reason, that I'm sure there has to be technology and ways that retailers could give individual sellers that information. But my hypothesis would be, because they're the retailers, they're the big, name brands, they don't have to, right? Like if you're going up against Target and being like, I want my customer data, they're going to be like, okay, go somewhere else, right? Like they're probably not going to go through all of that for all of their sellers.
No,
to do that, but I'm sure it's possible, right? Like we've discussed waves, we've seen it.
Yeah, and we're getting there. We're finding ways to maybe not get to that level of data, but something that we just started working with is a company called Pair, which has it basically allows us to create a store locator where people can shop from our email campaigns, like to target.com. And so we can track if people are making those purchases coming from, our, own channels and email, but we don't necessarily know exactly who did that or what they purchased, just that they did. So we can see the relationship, but we can't, necessarily market to a personal level based on that data.
What is it? Pair, PEAR?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so let's go back into like the retention side. Like, do you use a lot of technology today in your normal responsibilities? Like, is that a big part of Ollipop?
Yeah, definitely. Even though, we have that kind of interesting relationship where we know people are shopping in, multiple areas. We do know a lot of people are shopping on drinkollipop.com, and there are obviously tactics we can do to help retain those customers. We use a lot of different things. One of the kind of biggest wins we've had is working with Repeat. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
yes.
We use a lot of personalized shopping carts within our email campaigns. And I know maybe we'll get into a little bit more about email content and how we craft that. But a lot of our strategy is like making that repeat purchase easy for a customer through our regular content, engaging content, leading to conversion. We do a lot of that. And then we also last month started using Repeat's kind of trigger through Klaviyo, which really times our repeat nurturing sequences based on their algorithm, whereas before we were using kind of Klaviyo's predicted reorder date. So we rebuilt all of our campaigns based on that, and the initial data is like we've increased our purchase rate on those flows by 245%. It was kind of crazy.
Wow.
A change.
So walk me through this a little bit, because so it's what you're deciding on is that you have a rebuy flow of like how to, you think that they're done with their first purchase and to get them to purchase again. And the trigger is all based on like, when does that start? And it's an estimation. And you're saying that Klaviyo had their own estimation, but the tool that you're using, Repeat, has like, you're trying this and it's actually been really good so far.
Yeah, it's just performing, I think, a mix of the timing of it. And then we did a lot of work just in terms of really segmenting out the reminder and the content for that repeat purchase based on how many purchases you made in the past, what you've purchased before. And so we just did a lot of customization with that flow, that between the timing of the flow and then the work we've done on the content and the creative and the segmentation has really been performing really well for us and exciting.
Only email so far. Right.
Repeat does have a trigger through SMS, but it's a little bit harder to do a lot of the personalization that we've been able to do through email. So we have both running.
What type of personalization do you do?
So we really focus on how many purchases you've had, so that the reminder isn't the same for, from your first purchase to your second purchase to your third purchase. And then we also focus heavily on the first purchase, knowing that most people are buying bestseller or the variety sampler pack on their first purchase. We kind of follow up specifically about that flavor profile that they purchased, and then suggesting another flavor to try based on what the person has purchased before.
I feel like I'm asking like so many questions. So I appreciate like all the like quick responses, because like now I got like another question based off of this. Okay. Do you look at LTV by well, actually, let me take a step back. For flavors, what determines a successful flavor?
With the amount of flavor launches we've had this year, a lot of our flavors are new, so they'll get a huge spike, from interest of a new flavor launch, and then it kind of stabilizes off. Just in terms of what is successful on D2C versus retail is also really interesting. We found that actually, like our most popular flavor in retail is strawberry vanilla. It's towards the bottom of the list for D2C, which is really interesting. And I think
when did strawberry vanilla come out? A while ago or recently?
Strawberry vanilla is one of our original flavors. So it's been kind of around from the beginning. But I think that comes down to like retail availability. So strawberry vanilla is, available in a lot of retailers. but maybe some of our other flavors aren't. And so that's why they're more popular on D2C than in retail. So we're really looking at, distribution of flavors in terms of availability in the market, and really kind of honing in on what people are looking for that they can only get through our D2C website. So kind of what, successful about a flavor really determines, is really based on, how people can access it, which is interesting.
Is there any, like the more flavors that someone were to try, do you think, like, would your hypothesis be that they would be a longer time customer if they're trying a lot more of your flavors? Or is it the opposite? Is it like one flavor that what they're sticking to and they stay a customer for a very long time?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see like our vintage cola subscription customers, that's like our number one subscription product. People like that flavor. That's what they're used to. They stick to that. But now that we have so many new flavors coming out, adding the variety kind of helps keep things fresh. And I really think it comes down to the individual, and especially when it comes to our subscription program. One thing that we've launched this year in relation to our new flavor launches is the ability for our subscription customers to add a case of the new flavor launch to their subscription without having to purchase outside of their subscription at their subscription discounted price. So that kind of creates and adds variety to the subscription at a discounted price, while still like retaining that original purchase intent of the flavor that they love while trying something new, all in the same shipment, which has been really great for us.
Yeah. Do you guys have for those new flavor launches, is there like a cadence internally that like, okay, we're releasing a new flavor each month or each quarter or something, so that, customers can kind of expect when I'm checking out for my subscription or whatever, like, oh, I can add this new flavor? Or is it just kind of like a surprise? Is there any messaging around that?
We don't necessarily say in advance, like when we're coming out with the flavor, maybe like a few days before, but this year has really been a cadence where we just kind of had that much innovation in the year that I think people are kind of starting to expect that from us, just because that has been what has happened this year. It wasn't necessarily super strategic in terms of we're going to come out with a new flavor each month, get ready for it. It was more just kind of organic as it evolved. And obviously we had the flavors planned, but we didn't necessarily like lay out the landscape at the time.
Yeah.
I feel so. You said it's not strategic. It comes off as strategic. Not saying that, I'm saying that as a marketer, probably not as a consumer.
Yeah, I mean, we do definitely, try to space them out, not to have, two flavors back to back right away. And so there is a cadence to it, just to kind of spread it out throughout the year, but it's not necessarily like, we've planned it exactly 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It's kind of, actually, it's a lot in relation to when the flavor is going to come out in retail. So, we've had a couple launches this year where the flavor, people are finding it in retail before we've really announced it on D2C, which has been interesting and kind of creates some hype behind that. But we don't necessarily completely have control of 100% when it's going to hit shelves. So there's a lot of interesting dynamic between the retail timing and the D2C timing that we've learned a lot from this year.
I feel like, all right, question for Mariah. I've had this aha moment listening to Michelle, which is the amount of flavors, right? Like there's so many, like the difference I see is that you have to compare Ollipop to something. And so for me, obviously, I'm comparing it to normal Coke and Pepsi, root beer, like normal root beer. And when I do that, I'm putting the normal Coca-Cola like to the side and saying, this is like old. It's been around for a long time. Ollipop, this is new. And then I'm looking at it from the sense of the flavors. I think it takes, my guess is it takes a long time for a company like Coca-Cola to come out with a new product. There's huge amount of resources needed and the logistics behind it. But like Ollipop's like, here's new flavor, here's new flavor. And it makes me think of TikTok, I'll be honest. and your generation, Mariah, because it's like, give me something new, give me something new, give me something new, or at least give me the appearance that things are evolving and changing fast. And again, Michelle, you said it's not strategic, but like, it comes across like that, saying like, hey, we can move really fast because people's tastes move very fast now. And it just seems that it's not just being healthy for you. It's just like how the brand is. It's just different, and it's the opposite of what the old is.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that is what's very, like, I don't want to say trending right now, but it is trending, of like, how fast can you be shown something new? And so, like, no matter the industry, that's going to work in your favor, right? Like, everyone already knows Coca-Cola. It'll be around for decade, whatever, forever. But this is okay. So, Michelle, a little bit of background. We were talking about Instagram and TikTok, of like Coca-Cola, they're always going to be known for that. And so even if they have like little branch like products or something that's different, they're going to be like, oh, what? Well, it's Coca-Cola. If I'm going to get a Coca-Cola product, I'm just going to get Coke, right? Or like they have like all their different, like Coke Zero and everything like that. It's still going back to the same thing though. So even though it's new flavors, I would say that Ollipop, you're going to it because at least this is my assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but like you're going to Ollipop because it's a healthy alternative. You're going to Coca-Cola because that's what you know. So it is an interesting dynamic to look at the two of them and compare them. But I do think they are different in that, like, their brand story or their messaging and who they're targeting. Because Coca-Cola knows that they don't have to, come out with a new product because it's already established. Ollipop, that kind of seems like that's your thing, right? Like you're coming out with all these interesting flavors and it's a newer brand. So people don't have that same, they're not stuck in their ways the same way that, you'd look at Coca-Cola.
Figure out where to put it in their head.
Yeah, it's like Instagram and TikTok, like the same thing we were discussing on the last podcast.
But your point was like the TikTok video, Instagram photos, and if Instagram is trying to move more into video, it's like that's hard to do because it's already photos in our brain. That's kind of the comparison you're making.
Yeah, and Coca-Cola has like they have, I don't even know them off the top of my head, but I know they have like cherry one, right? Like they do have different flavors, but they're never going to be as popular as the original because that's what everyone knows and loves. Whereas Ollipop, you can look at you're presented with a bunch of different flavors immediately. So like that's what they're more known for, is what I'd argue.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I think also for this year for Olipop, it's like we're really building out our core portfolio of flavors. Like we have had limited edition flavors like the banana cream that we did in partnership with Universal and the Minions. Like that was a novelty flavor that was limited edition for a limited time. That's like the new kind of exciting thing. But the flavors that we've come out, like the cherry cola and the cream soda, those are like really iconic soda flavors that I think we're kind of building that portfolio of flavors to really position ourselves to compete with a traditional soda. We need that kind of flavor variety that people have come to, be nostalgic about in their lives. Like they remember having a cream soda. That's why we have the cream soda, is like to replicate that nostalgic feel. So it's a combination of excitement of the new flavors, but also just like coming out with that core portfolio that really satisfies that longing for the soda that we remember as kids.
Who's we should have asked this early on, especially being the retention manager, like who is the typical buyer, and like how many buyers do you have if you were to forecast that?
So Ollipop, I think, is really going through a transition in terms of who our core customer is. When Ollipop started, we were more of that health product. We were targeting a lot of, healthy kombucha drinkers, whole food shopping moms, like that type of audience, healthy influencers, that kind of audience. But now as we've expanded it, major retailers like Target and Walmart, our customer base is very wide now, and that's what we really want in terms of our mission to really change what people are drinking and the relationship with soda. So as Ollipop expands, our customer base is broader and broader and broader, and that's really a focus for our brand in the next year, is really honing in on that messaging that appeals to a broad audience and doesn't necessarily get too preachy about health things, and makes it more about the experience of enjoying something that's better for you without sacrificing too much of, enjoyment of actually having a healthy product. So our messaging and the approach to things is really kind of changing, and who we're hoping to reach is expanding a lot. And it's really exciting as a kind of better for you brand to be approaching that shift.
That makes sense. I mean, obviously, this is, I'm sure that the whole company is thinking about it, but for a can right now, it's $3.99, I believe, or $2.99. Shoot, I think it was $3.99. I don't know.
I think it depends on the retail that you're buying from, but I think our standard price is maybe $2.99. A lot of times you can buy it on sale for $2.49. It depends. It's on sale sometimes.
And do you think you can reach that mass audience with that same price?
That is definitely a struggle for us, just in terms of, the ingredients that go into our soda is, very different than a sugar water, basically. And so there's a lot of functional ingredients that really is, creating that cost shift. But our hope is that as we grow and can scale, we can, bring that cost down to reach a broader audience. But I think that's where, a lot of the work that I do in terms of retention marketing and communicating about the function of our product over time is really, that's our opportunity to educate people. Like, why does this soda cost $2.99 when I can get a Coke for 50 cents? I mean, that's the opportunity to explain the difference and why, Ollipop is, better for you.
Well, let's hit on that, because on the emails that Mariah and I received, like once we ordered our Ollipop, I would say that's what came across. It was very educational, especially like, hey, the confirmation of the order, and I think the order was shipped. It was all about like, hey, here's why this is good for you. So that's on purpose, obviously.
Yeah. We really, in the last year, have structured our kind of post-purchase journey based on kind of the first purchase, second purchase, and third purchase in terms of what we really want to communicate and kind of how we trickle that education over time. It's really focused on like the first purchase is kind of defining what is a new kind of soda. That's the goal of that post-purchase flow. Second purchase, we start to get a little bit more into function, a little bit more about fiber, a little bit more about the microbiome. So it's kind of trickling education without like kind of shoving it in your face right at the beginning. That can be a turnoff for a lot of people. But as you get more invested and Ollipop becomes a habit, you're drinking it regularly, we want to educate people on, what that's actually meaning for you and, how it can make a difference in your daily life without necessarily starting with that, leading with that. We're leading more with it's a new kind of soda rather than it's a sparkling health tonic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate the education behind it, because I think that's, for me at least, like that's the messaging that I like to hear about, is like, oh, how is this? Like, I remember there was even a little little health tip, and it was like, oh, like probiotics, right? Like your microbiome, your gut, that, the ingredients that are in Ollipop, that is helping your digestive system. And so like, I always appreciated that. And so of course, when I got the order confirmation, it was great to see. And I love the can too, like at the top it says like supports digestive health. There's like sun, of course, where I'm trying to put it in, but like all those little things. And I want to go into like the messaging a little bit too of all the branding. Like, how do you get that across without being too like preachy and still trying to captivate that wider audience that you were saying Ollipop is, trying to go after, right? You're not just exclusively in this more niche community, but it's like, how do you balance getting that messaging and branding across to a point that it isn't so overwhelming that it isn't relatable for the masses, right? So I would love to, I know you said that Ollipop in terms of its audience is going into the transition in terms of a wider reach, but I'd love to know, has the branding always stayed the same? Like the can and the whole process of crafting those emails and all the social, has that also kind of grown and adapted as the audience has?
Yeah, just a little bit of like kind of background on Ollipop and kind of the evolution of it, the branding. back in the very beginnings of Olipop, it actually had a completely different look and feel. Like the packaging was totally different. It focused more on like the ingredients of Olipop. Our co-founders, Ben and David, had like a gut feeling about that it wasn't really what they wanted to put out. And that ended up, they scrapped it all, and it ended up to what you see today in terms of, the very colorful, nostalgic feeling of our packaging, which is 1,000% been a large part of our success. Just, it looks fun to drink an Olipop from the packaging. But in terms of like the nuances of our packaging and the branding, this is where the slight shift that we're going through right now. I think I mentioned a couple of times, some of our cans say sparkling tonic, and you'll see over the next year, they're starting to specifically say a new kind of soda. I don't know if your can says sparkling tonic.
It does.
Mine does. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine, the cherry cola that just came out, says a new kind of soda.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
Is really what we're focusing on. So that's the kind of transition between sparkling tonic sounds much more like a health beverage. A new kind of soda is, it's soda, it's not sparkling water. It really defines what the product is, but also hints to being slightly, what's a new kind of soda? What does that mean? And so that's where, a lot of the education then comes in from the curiosity of what a new kind of soda actually means. And
you're trying to start your own new category, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what we're doing. We're, a functional beverage, but trying to break from kind of that strict category into something that really can compete with a traditional soda. Is really the goal. But, in terms of how we keep people engaged, especially, you mentioned the price point, and really communicating that is making that educational content fun and engaging. And just by the nature of, Olipop's branding and packaging, it's colorful, it's fun. We have amazing creative team that really does an amazing job of combining, fun visuals with, really kind of maybe unexpected copy that gets, can get really fun. In some of our campaigns, like we really kind of go for a different approach that maybe other kind of healthy brands might not. I think one of the questions on the list here was about, what is a, campaign that you've really enjoyed working on? And I think this really kind of ties into your question. Like we go for it in terms of the educational content. We worked on a campaign with partnered with a registered dietitian to create educational content that just really addressed a very common question we get, which is, does Ollipop make you poop? Like we went for that. We get that question a lot. We introduced that concept. It was eye-catching and different, and something people wonder with the fiber content in our product. And so it was just kind of a fun way to engage that concept without, making a 5-page dissertation on the benefits of fiber. That's kind of the approach that we take, is talking about the topic, but in a kind of friendly, engaging way, like really thinking about how you might talk to a friend about, healthy changes that you make.
About poop.
Yeah. Very lighthearted. I like that.
Yes. When you said you got a lot of questions, not you got a lot of questions, the brand got a lot of questions. It'd be odd if you just got it. But like, we're individuals emailing Ollipop. Is that, or is it just kind of like you saw this in, I don't know, different communities and threads, people were asking that, or were they actually like, let's find the email to Ollipop, to Michelle, and I have a question?
It really has come from a lot of different channels. We see that question on social, we get it directly, in our CX inbox. If you start to Google, does Ollipop, one of the things that comes up as a common search is, does Ollipop?
Testing this.
We've seen these things, and we, seen that people are asking these questions. So let's talk about it. And it is,
you're right. There's number 3 for me. Does Ollipop have caffeine? Does Ollipop have alcohol? Does Ollipop make you poop?
Yeah.
Number 3.
That's great. A brand awareness too, right?
Yeah, that's great. Let's go. I'm curious about the second one. Does Ollipop have alcohol? Is this something that the team has considered at all, or no? Even just a partnership somewhere?
We definitely have, recipes and suggestions
Mm.
about different cocktails that you can make, but I don't know that we're really in the space that started to come out with,
Especially if you just did sparkling tonic and you're like, oh gosh, we gotta change this again.
yeah, who knows what will come in the future for Olipop, but, I wouldn't necessarily rule it out, but we've got
Okay.
a lot of plans just on, really tackling the soda market. So that might be a little ways off.
So I want to take a quick step backwards and talk about those emails really quick.
Sure.
I guess like what I wanted to say is like a comment more than a question, but more for our audience, right? Like there's so we work with so many merchants that are like, hey, just send the email that says your order is on the way, and then an email that says your order is at your doorstep, for example, and that's it. But what we try to communicate to our merchants, which sounds like Michelle, you're already well aware of this, is that there's always this like guilt. There's a little bit of guilt as soon as you click on the buy button, right? It's like, oh, like did I make the right decision to purchase this product or not? And I felt it was the flow that you put together like helped with that guilt along the way. It made me assure myself that I made the right decision, right? Like it was, okay, I'm buying this for health reasons. And then like the very first email was the confirmation that it was purchased. And then I think there was information there about, again, like the health reasons, like you said, like the first flow is about just like general overall high level health reasons about Olipop. And it was educational, but like honestly, it just made me feel reassured that I made the right decision. Is that something that you've thought about as well too, or did that also just come organically?
Yeah, definitely have thought about that, especially with the price point, and especially with the price point of purchasing on
Yeah.
our website. To commit to buying a whole 12 case of something that maybe you haven't tried before. Our hope is that you have tried it before in retail, but maybe you haven't, or it's a new flavor. There really is a need to confirm that you made the right decision, and something exciting is coming from the investment that you made in yourself, really.
What so you talked about the goal of the going from first purchase to second purchase to third purchase, and you have campaigns for each one of those. Like how do you know that it's working or not?
Well, I think this really comes down to like kind of the longer game of retention. Is like you don't really until you really have time with it, and you watch those campaigns and you look at how people are engaging with the content, but then also are we making that bridge from first to second purchase? How many people go through that flow and end up repurchasing? Also making those campaigns easy to purchase from. So we're looking at the engagement of those flows. Are people engaging with that content? But then also, does that content actually end up generating sales? It might not be our goal from the content. The goal is, the education and to make you, feel good about your purchase. But then, do people end up actually buying from that email? And we're seeing that is the case. So that's kind of two things that we're looking at is, are people engaging with the content? Are people purchasing from those flows? But then do they ultimately end up repurchasing as well?
That's what I've heard. And I'm just you're reconfirming that, like, yes, like even though it's an email, like you still will track the engagement of that email. And then if someone is purchasing off of that email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to add to, or Michelle, do you have something to add onto that? Okay. I want to add that, so getting the emails, the pop-up so this is the post-purchase emails, right? When you get, I think it was in the order, your order is on the way, so out for delivery email, and there's a pop-up to refer a friend. And so it was like, send this to your friends, $15 off, whatever. And then there's also another part of that, which is, of course, anyone who listens to the podcast will know I was intrigued by, which was I guess, a partnership or integration. I'm not sure what the technical term is there, but you're working with Bounty. And so, from the consumer point of view, it's like this little it has it in your emails and it's like, okay, want to get paid to create a TikTok of you drinking Olipop, something along those lines. And so I, of course, had to set up the process and see what it was all about. But can you tell us more about kind of that? Like, it can be high level, just about Bounty and what the inspiration behind that was. Because I have my hypothesis, but I would love to hear your reasoning.
And maybe talk a little bit about like what. Sorry, I was even confused with link. Like when you told me, Mariah, like what? It's like a link. Like if you could explain exactly what it looks like.
Sure. So, well, actually, the process for Bounty actually starts immediately after post-purchase on the confirmation page. So on the confirmation page, there is a widget through an integration we have with Bounty, which is really just a experiment for us right now, something we're trying. And basically what it says on that confirmation page is, do you want to get paid to talk about Olipop? And because you've got the product coming to you, you've already purchased it, you can sign up to basically make TikTok videos about Olipop once it arrives. And you sign up through a process to basically, commit to making content. The content, exists organically on, the individual creators' accounts, and then Bounty tracks the views on that content and then pays out creators based on views, just kind of organically and naturally without it being.
Just on views?
Yes. Yeah. And as a brand, you can set up different like thresholds for how many views you want. And I don't necessarily know all the details of how we have that set up, but that's the kind of general flow of it. And what we've done is, because that really exists like on the confirmation page, which is you see maybe once when you check out, we've worked it into our post-purchase flows and emails as well, so that you're getting that information about Bounty, like basically as you're receiving the product as well. So that seems to work well for us just in terms of timing. We're seeing a lot of organic content come out of that. And, that has been great for us. It's, very early stages of, working with Bounty, but so far it seems to be working well just in terms of the amount of content that we're getting and our TikTok presence really growing as a brand. But actually, I think just yesterday I heard from Bounty that they actually have a new integration with Klaviyo, that they can set up a separate trigger to send like a dedicated email about Bounty that sends you through a whole personalized experience to sign up for it outside of the confirmation page. Because currently you have to really.
It's coming from Ollipop though. It would be still coming from Ollipop.
Yeah, it would be coming from Ollipop through our account, message exactly how we want to, but just allow that messaging and to exist outside of that post-purchase email and its own kind of timing and flow.
So is that difficult for you though? Because it's like two competing metrics, right? Like it's like, okay, we got to focus on the retention piece and educating the consumer. And then at the same time, it's like, well, can they generate content to help us generate even new consumers? Is that a difficult thing to do for you?
That is, something we just in general constantly have struggled with is, that post-purchase experience. There's so much that we could say and want to say, and, you only have so much space, but we use that kind of as an experiment, and we had the opportunity. We wanted to see if we could get that content created, and that was really the best and only place to put it. So, are we temporarily sacrificing maybe another placement? Yes, but in the spirit of innovation and experimentation, that's kind of the sacrifice we sometimes have to make.
Well, it probably comes down to personalization, right? Like if you can understand the customer from the beginning, like showing me a Bounty like probably doesn't make sense unless maybe Mariah thinks that I should start a TikTok soon. But like showing a Bounty to Mariah maybe makes more sense. And I think like that would be interesting, like conditional flows based on either first party data that you have or like third party data that's saying like, hey, Brian Lastovich has, these social media accounts linked to him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that integration that is coming out with Bounty will allow us to personalize that,
do that
more. Yeah.
Cool.
I would offer too, even though, I'm sure it's a trade-off with the educational content versus having the Bounty TikTok offering there. I would offer that it lends itself. So Bounty, it lends itself to retention as well, right? Like, so you're creating the content. And so that's another way for Ollipop to have a relationship with their consumer that is different
Right. That's
from
true.
other, like I
You're an
haven't
owner
seen.
in the product. It's almost like you're an
Yeah.
owner in the product now. You're part of the marketing team, right?
Yeah,
So you gotta be
Yeah.
owning the
exactly.
product if you want to be an owner into it.
And there's
Yeah.
a motivator there, right? Like being
Yeah.
compensated, whatever. But there's also a like subliminal or subconscious level. It's like, oh, I'm now more committed to Olipop because I am putting, and if I've signed up for Bounty, I'm putting more work into it, putting more time, investing more time. And so if you see that then become successful as an individual and as a consumer, you're like, oh, I'm going to keep working with Olipop, keep consuming their product because one, I like it. Two, there's this other avenue that it's like now as a consumer, I can create content and get compensated for it on the back end. So I would say, even though it is an interesting toss up to experiment with of, okay, you're not putting in like this blog post, I think it also lends itself nicely to the relationship building aspect of retention, but also it plays into the branding a bit, in my opinion, because it's newer for Olipop. Like I haven't seen that before. So I'm like, oh wow, they're really on top of it. They're such a fun brand. They're on TikTok, right? Like even if you aren't on TikTok, I think
So
there's
you
still
have to be on TikTok to be a fun brand. Oh
yes.
my.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we've used that bounty offer as kind of like actual growth and new customer acquisition tool in a way
Yes.
as well, because our team who makes our TikTok content is amazing. They did a TikTok directly about bounty, basically saying, purchase from Ollipop with this promo code and you can get paid to talk about Ollipop. So we've seen orders come from the fact that we've said, new orders come from the fact that we've said you can end up doing this with, the Ollipop that you will purchase, even though you haven't ever tried it before, or maybe you've tried it in store, but now here's a new way to interact with the brand. We actually used a campaign at the initial launch of Bounty with a promo code. We targeted some people who are very new to our flows who haven't purchased yet, alongside, some kind of consistent long-term customers with us. And we saw a lot of people purchase Ollipop for the first time because of that Bounty offer, which is really interesting. So I think it works both ways for us.
Yeah, I think what we've heard and what I believe now is like a great post-purchase experience, not just improves retention and customer lifetime value and such, but accelerates the upper funnel and new customer growth as well too. And like that's a classic example of what you're sharing with us, Michelle.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, this has been so much fun. I know I just looked at the time and I
Did you
realized
finish all 6 cans?
12.
12.
I finished all 12 cans. Yeah. You didn't see me. I wouldn't even be able to talk if I was finishing all 12 cans, I feel like.
You didn't go to the restroom. That's amazing.
Yeah, you're right. I know. Wow, superpowers.
Good for you.
But Michelle, this has been so fun. One last question that we like to ask our guests is any resource. It can be, in business in general, it can be a book or a podcast or just general advice that you'd give. What would be one thing that you would share with our audience?
Yeah, I think this is more just like general advice, and something that I really keep in mind as I'm working is that retention is about like the long term, and it can be really, maybe I'm losing my words. It can be very tempting to kind of compare to maybe some growth strategies that are very exciting, large budgets, exciting campaigns, big splashes, whereas retention is that long-term process. It takes a lot of grind and refinement and willing to like really commit to the process that in the long term is really rewarding, but it takes a certain mindset to really focus on that long-term goal.
Yeah, I love that.
You have to have patience, Maria.
Yeah. Noted.
Noted. Could you do this?
Yeah, I'll think of that while I'm sipping on my Ollipop. Well, Michelle, this has been a blast. So thank you again for making the time and telling us more about the ins and outs of Ollipop and everything in between.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was fun.
Thanks, Michelle.